We're going to set a record. Most transactions discussed on the Just Baseball show. What a freaking awesome deadline. And we were saying that, I think that's like the fifth episode in a row that I've said that. What a freaking cool deadline. But it was like 5 days of nonstop fun and trades. And this saved any like negative feeling I had about the deadline last year. Because I thought last year was kind of a dud, but this year was absolutely phenomenal. And the final hour of the deadline lived up to the hype. Jack, Aram, Just Baseball show. Does July have 31 days or is it August 1st?
I think it has 31 days.
It is
Yeah,
31.
the one thing, like the way we clown Peter about geography, that's how I am with like the calendar.
I don't know days though.
But there's 31 days. There's 31.
Okay, good. So today, Wednesday, July 31st, Just Baseball show, as always, presented by BetMGM. Yeah, time zones are tough for Peter. And he explained, so you guys are in the midst of this NL Central tour, which has been awesome. I loved that I was able to join you guys in Milwaukee and had great conversations with Colin and Mason and like awesome, awesome fans in Milwaukee. And you just did the same thing in St. Louis.
Oh, we talked. We got to chop it up with some awesome folks in St. Louis too. And of course, great baseball fans.
Right.
Not a huge surprise. Although one of them was a Yankee fan, so
Cool.
I don't know how I feel about that, but it's okay. Lives in Kansas City, works in St. Louis, so could triangulate like any of the three. It's all
Okay.
right. We'll
Listen,
support the Yankees fandom. Him and Peter were chopping it up about the Yanks for a while as Jazz Chisholm hit his fourth home run in what, like seven at bats with the
yeah. How
Yankees.
about
We,
this?
we we
After
told
after
you that was
you,
going to happen.
well, no, you told me it was going to happen on Sunday Night Baseball.
Yeah, I was a day early.
But yeah, and then it's been multi-homer day for Jazz Chisholm. So welcome to the New York Yankees, man. Also, welcome to St. Louis. Welcome back to St. Louis, Tommy Pham with that grand slam. That
Yeah,
had to be cool to be in the ballpark for.
it was like one of those that where you just like felt like everyone knew that it was going to happen. Left-hander on the mound, he pinch hit, standing O was really cool. Yeah, and they really gave him the standing O. Like Jonah Heim even went out to the mound. They gave him some great treatment there and worked the count, and then boom, grand slam, curtain call, the whole 9 yards. It was really cool. That's the one thing. If you have a decent career with the Cardinals, they're always going to let you know that they appreciate you on the back end.
Without a doubt. But I was saying, so I was in Milwaukee with you guys, and your girlfriend has been at the Milwaukee game and the St. Louis game. My
Yeah.
girlfriend was at the Milwaukee game because she lives in Milwaukee, and Peter was given the opportunity to explain to her why I live in the Middle East. And that was awesome. The
Yes.
Middle Eastern part of the United States. So that was one of my highlights of the trip that had nothing to do with interacting with our excellent listeners.
I love that. I love that. And I'm excited. We got three more stops, right? And just
Yep.
it's amazing that you just realize that real people actually listen to this show. Like real, normal, like kind, knowledgeable people listen to this show for some reason. So that's been really cool.
That was kind of an upset story. Like
Yeah.
I was expecting a tumbleweed to roll through the section, to be
Yeah.
quite. I was
That's
like,
what I was
oh yeah,
expecting.
I knew this. This validates all my fears.
Yep, there we go. Yep.
But we've got a billion transactions, I think,
A little
maybe
bit less.
yeah, 17,000 transactions that we got to
Yes.
go through. So precursor, tomorrow's show, by the way, I'm super excited to listen to because Aram and
Yeah.
Peter are going to be recording a live, they're doing a live recording of the of the Thursday Just Baseball show. Wow, scatterbrained right now. But the deadline does that to you. Of the Thursday Just Baseball show on Wednesday evening. So you're listening to this on Wednesday, tonight at 5 o'clock at the MGM area at Great American Ballpark. Aram
Yes.
and Peter are going to be recording a live podcast, which is going to be really cool. And I'm excited to listen to that and how that goes.
Very cool experience. Folks, if you're at the game, or even if you didn't buy a ticket to the section but ended up realizing you're going to be at the game or in the area, come hang out, come watch the live episode. It'll be a lot of fun. And Peter, as I'm recording this, like, he had a great idea. We're going to do kind of awards and superlatives from the deadline. So, we're going to talk about who had the best deadline, and some of the trades that individually were the best or worst, but then also some funny things too, of course, that we'll do some like funny superlatives and awards on that front. So going to be really fun. And don't worry, you're going to get all of Peter's thoughts on the deadline as well. So it works out really nicely.
Real quick, my celeb take on that big winner of the deadline, Miami. I
Got to
thought
be.
of this bar during the Indianapolis Indians Toledo Mud Hens game. They liquidated swimmingly. Give that a
Huh.
letter grade. That's pretty good.
They liquidated swimmingly. That was pretty good.
I
You've
think
never
like E
heard that
minus.
somewhere else before? That's never been done somewhere else?
I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah. I'd give that that's an A minus.
Sick. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
room to grow, but I thought that was good.
It's
Like,
not perfect, but it's a good one.
is it a little in your face for sure? But I thought the Marlins liquidated swimmingly. Here's the deal. We're gonna go through transaction by transaction. The last one that we did was Isaac Paredes,
No,
going
80
from the
trades
Rays
ago.
to the Cubs. Yeah, 80. Like it feels like a billion years ago, but also it was 48 hours ago. We're gonna skip some like Ricky Vanasco going, to the Tigers for cash considerations. Like we're just not gonna talk about that. But I've got really like every notable trade that went down since then, starting with Michael Lorenzen through Jack Flaherty. We're going to spend varying amounts of time on these. So, like a Michael Lorenzen for Walter Pennington deal, it's fun. And that's the first one that we're going to talk about. But like the Flaherty deal, we're going to spend more time on. The Tanner Scott
Yep.
deal, we're going to spend more time on. Ty France, it'll be quick. I'm sorry, Reds fans / Mariners fans. But we'll start with Lorenzen going from Texas to Kansas City for Walter Pennington, a left-handed reliever who just recently made his major league debut. Friend of the call-up, was an amazing guest
So
on the
cool.
call-up. But listen, the Royals get their back end of the rotation guy to help them get through the regular season, and Texas, they get a big league reliever that for
Yeah.
some reason couldn't make a really thin big league bullpen in Kansas City.
Yeah, which is surprising with the way he can get left-handed hitters out, Pennington, and the slider plays well, and a really cool guy, great story from the Colorado School of Mines. So if you're a Rangers fan and want to learn more about him, check out that interview on the call up. Just really thoughtful pitcher as well. But Lorenzen, not the sexiest addition in the world, but it helps get you through the rest of the regular season, and not have to have your the same arms shoulder so much of the load. So I think it was just a nice quiet, low key pickup, especially with the cost of decent starting pitching in this market, which we're going to continue to talk about. Get a guy that's passable, and you don't have to give up much.
No, and Pennington, like I don't think he's necessarily ever going to be perceived as much, but like that's going to be a big league reliever for quite.
No, and on the other side for the Rangers, like they didn't want to sell clearly. They can trim some pieces that don't really factor in, and now you get a reliever with 6 years of control, who could continue to get better as well, and at the very least is a solid middle reliever that can go multiple innings.
Yeah.
So he's still a solid piece for them. They get control in that regard and a cheaper reliever as they've already spent so much money across the roster.
Reds tried a reclamation project. Ty France, who was DFA'd last week, made his way to Cincinnati. Ty France and cash considerations for minor league catcher Andrew Salcedo. It allows Steer to go back to left after CES had that season-ending surgery. That's cool positionally. The Reds sold. Frankie Montas gone, Lucas Sims gone, but France is interesting. Like I guess, hey, he could find it again, but this has just been a nightmare of a year for Ty France. And here's to hoping that he finds something in one of the more hitter-friendly environments in baseball.
Yeah, it's not the easiest place to hit in the world in Seattle either, but I was hoping the home road splits would be a bit more dramatic. They're really not. He's, about not even 20 OPS points better on the road. That said, seeing some balls get out that were not getting out in Seattle, could get his confidence going a little bit. It's definitely the one of the best landing spots he could have had, if not the best, because there's a clear need for him. Yes, they've sold, but at the same time, like they're still going to try to give it a little bit of a run. He swung it better against lefties, so he can fill that kind of role as well. And you might as well see how he does. It's been a position that, yeah, they've had, as you've said, like other guys playing there, but with CES out, he's a fill-in now, but also an insurance policy in case CES is, still a little banged up at the start of next year, or if any of those, issues kind of, hang around for him. So I think it was worth a shot. See how it goes. But we've seen him perform well in the past. So hopefully he can, do a little bit better here. And the expected stats, for what it's worth, have been a little bit better than what he's actually done. So let's hope he can get rolling in Cincinnati.
Bit of an eyebrow raiser, but in a good way. For us, I know, and I know for a lot of people around too, Pittsburgh and Boston. Quinn Priester goes to the Boston Red Sox for Nick Yorke. Former first rounders. Nick Yorke was, I think, 17th overall in 2020. Priester was 18th and 19. They were in similar spots. And the way that I simply computed this was it's almost like the Pirates got the hitting version of Quinn Priester,
Yeah.
where it's first round pedigree. You can see the talent absolutely. It's just a matter of putting it together. Yorke hasn't had that opportunity yet in the big leagues. Priester has had that opportunity, and we've seen him go 6 shutout in San Francisco. We've seen him go, 5 innings of 1-run ball. But we've also seen the homer bug bite him, in certain outings. And we've seen him get, blitzed over 4 inning outings sometimes. Like, it hasn't been a complete product for Priester. Frankly, I don't think that he was able to put his best foot forward on occasion. And now the Pirates get to take something away from the best pitching situation in baseball and
Yeah.
allocate it towards one of the worst hitting prospect situations in baseball.
Well, and it just seemed like it wasn't going to happen for Priester in Pittsburgh. And he earns really high marks. And I know you can speak to the makeup and just how intelligent he is of a pitcher, but I just don't know if it was the right fit in terms of, him being able to find how his arsenal is going to work the best possible and just how he was going to be the best version of Quinn Priester in Pittsburgh. And that's not to say that, it's fully an indictment on Pittsburgh. I just think that if it's going to happen, I think it's become abundantly clear at this point that it's going to happen somewhere else. And I think if there's a place where it could happen, that's the most likely. I think it's Boston, especially with how they've done with these sinker types, these sinker slider types that also can mix in, a quality curveball. Like Priester has the goods to be a back end of the rotation starter at the big league level. And, I do think that this is a little bit more than a total exchange of prospects who have come up short. Nick Yorke has been swinging it really well, over the
900
last few
OPS
months.
in Worcester, man. Like I think he's going on 5-6 weeks of a 900 OPS.
With plus EVs, like I don't, there's some underlying stuff I don't love. Like I'd love to see him pull the ball in the air a lot more. He can kind of get a little bit like inside out with the swing, and that can get blown up more at the big league level with hard stuff in. But at the same time, he's 22, and he's not going to turn 23 till the beginning of next year. I was surprised to see the Red Sox do this. And to be honest, I feel like the Red Sox must have a lot of confidence that they can get Priester right. And we've seen the way that they've tweaked, it's not going to say that it's going to turn into that, but Tanner Houck and getting him to lean more into the sinker, whereas before the four-seamer just wasn't playing for him. I think they're going to find something with Priester that's going to work sequencing wise, and it's going to elevate him a little bit more. Maybe after they acquired Danny Jansen, they didn't feel like they're going to need, York's right-handed bat this year. But I was surprised because this is also a team that, has Romy Gonzalez on the bench and Jamie Westbrook on the bench. And it's a lineup filled with left-handed hitters. So to part with a right-handed hitting second baseman, who I know is, not the most exciting in the world in terms of, it's been a little bit up and down. He's changed his swing a lot. The defense is not great. I was surprised still, though, because, you're hoping you get something from Vaughn Grissom when he comes back, and it's probably his position. Yeah. But still, in the meantime, I didn't feel like it was an area where they were at liberty to just subtract from. But at the same time, like you also saw Luis Perales go down, and it's not like they're the most loaded pitching wise at the top in the upper minors and depth wise. So I think it was more important for them to get that pitching depth, and they feel pretty good about, Christian Campbell coming up and some of these other infielders who have been performing really well at the lower levels and now into the upper levels. I think it's more of they felt good about where they're at infield wise and wanted to add another arm to the fold that they feel like they could maximize and may even be able to help them a little bit this year.
And coming full circle on your point, like I think they felt comfortable moving Yorke because they were getting a guy of Priester's caliber. And they clearly know what they're doing when it comes to pitching identification and guys that they can improve. And, you think about the best pitching situations to get into. Chris Fedde gets rave reviews in Detroit. Kyle Snyder gets rave reviews in Tampa. Mark Pryor in LA. After that, man, we're there with Breslow being the lead decision maker. He knows what to see pitching wise. He was doing a bang up job with Chicago. And then Andrew Bailey, man, we're there with Andrew Bailey. So I think this is a good situation that he finds himself in for sure.
And they've got Mr. Driveline in the fold there too. So, I don't know how involved he is. I've heard mixed things on that front, but they
Mr.
do have more
like sinkers. I feel like he doesn't like sinkers.
You think he might not. So I don't know, but clearly Bailey seems to feel like he can maximize those sinker type guys. And, the sinker performs well relative to others, in terms of swinging strike rate, in terms of being able to get ground balls. I do feel like they can get him right and get him to be a back end of the rotation starter. And if that happens, that's better than a platoon, second baseman, which is, it seems like where Yorke could be headed. But I thought it was a great swap for both sides. We know that the Pirates need infielders and have so many arms, as you alluded to. And for the Red Sox, they could definitely use some more upper minors arms.
That was so bad from us. We just went 5.5 minutes on Quinn Priester and Nick Yorke. We can't do that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
have
no,
too many
no.
good
We got to tighten up.
That was so bad. All right, three-team deal now. The Dodgers get Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech, and Oliver Gonzalez. The Cardinals get Eric Fedde and Tommy Pham. And the White Sox, in the words of Charlie Brown, got a rock. Miguel Vargas, hey, we'll see. They're looking cross town, and it's like, well, Michael Busch got good for the Cubs. Maybe Miguel Vargas can be that guy for us. Okay. And then Harold Perez, who was a breakout this year in Rancho. We had no idea who that guy was a month into the season. And then it took like a month and 1,000 OPS to really understand it. And then Alexander Albertus, who's a complex guy, and he's hurt. He's going to miss the
Yeah.
entirety of like the rest of the season. We'll go kind of team by team through this one. The Dodgers got Edman, Kopech, and Gonzalez. Kopech joins them. Gratterall is close. I'm thinking about Kopech, Gratterall, Treinen back to back to back innings, and my brain is exploding. That is disgusting, gross. But Edman fills exactly what the Dodgers needed.
I love it from the two buyer standpoint, right? Like Edman is, as you said, exactly what they need. He can play a good center field and he can play a good shortstop. So they may need help at both those spots here and there. And he's able to do that at both situations for them. There's a question of the wrist, and the return has definitely been slower than people were expecting, and then even the rehab has been a bit more cautious than people were expecting. But clearly, the Dodgers feel as though he can get right soon enough, and there's no rush there, right? Like if he's not fully ready to go until September, that's fine. And he has a month to get his feet under him. And you have him for the postseason, but beyond that, you got him for next year too. And that again helps you either if you can't find an upgrade at shortstop, or if Outman or whoever is just not making it happen in center field. So they're in a really good spot there where Edman can fill multiple roles and they can move guys around. And it seems like he can be that like heir to what Chris Taylor has been for them in the past. Different type of game, but at the same time, being able to excel for them, and even better defender at multiple premium positions. And then, on the other side, to get Eric Fedde with another year of control at 7 million. The Cardinals have a head start on next year's rotation too, because I don't know what they're going to do with the options of Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. Probably pick up Gibson maybe because it's still affordable and he's been throwing pretty well. But depending on what they want to do, at least you've got now another guy that you can pencil in there right next to Sonny Gray and for what, $7 million. So they have a lot more money to work with here too if they don't pick up one of those other options. Very cheap to have him alongside Sonny Gray, a guy that, he's been a sub-3 guy, Eric Fedde. So to that point, and we talked about it a little bit, off the air, very surprised by the return and we'll get to that on the White Sox side. I thought it'd be a little bit more significant, but on the Buyers side, I thought it was a win-win for both of these teams where the Cardinals get their arm for this year and next year. The Dodgers get their infielder / finally maybe a shortstop for this year and next year and beyond that. And so I think it was perfect for both those teams. And they didn't really have to yield much prospect capital.
And if I'm not mistaken, Tommy Edman is a California guy. I think he's Northern Cal. No, he's from San Diego. So this works, man. He could be hometown discount, that kind of thing. You have $68 million a year tied up for Shohei Ohtani after he assumingly retires or signs another 10-year deal. So, I mean, if they're looking for a little bit of a cheap option, Edman seems like that guy at shortstop because they were looking Seager and Turner right in the face, and they didn't do it with either of them. It makes me think that they're going to commit long-term to a cheap shortstop, and Edman could be that guy. St. Louis, their vibe is getting better. It was piss poor at the beginning of the year, I think, and it was, kind of bleeding over from a bad year last year. They tried to change the temp with the signing of Sonny Gray, which was huge, but Sonny missed the beginning of the year with a hamstring thing. Fedde is an injection in that rotation, and it feels like you are on eggshells with every Gibson and Lynn and Michaelis start because they can get obliterated. Gray and Fedde aren't. And that was so calming for a team that is going to make a push in the NL Central and at the very least make a push in the NL wildcard. And you want a spark plug, man. Like Tommy Pham's as good a spark plug as there is in baseball.
Yeah, we knew that they weren't going to totally overhaul the rotation. It's still going to be one of those where it's like, oh, wow, Kyle Gibson is getting the ball game 3, but at least he's not getting the ball game 2.
Yeah.
With Lance Lynn getting the ball game 3, much better when you've got Sonny Gray who can go toe to toe with anybody. And I know it's Eric Fedde at the end of the day, but this is a different Eric Fedde. So yeah, the team that you're playing will probably have a better number two in terms of name value and maybe even, some of the stuff plus numbers or whatever it may be. But in terms of ERA, it's a good chance Fedde might stack up right with whoever they're facing if they make the playoffs in game two. So, that's the big part of this thing as well. I think you got to feel thrilled, if you're a fan of either of those two teams. I think if you're a White Sox fan, you got to be pretty disappointed compared to what some of these other rentals have brought in and compared to what some of these other pitchers with control have brought in. Because again, it's 1 year of control, but it's $7 million. So cheap. And he's cheap the rest of this year, obviously, too. I've talked about it on the show for the last few weeks. I was expecting Fedde to bring in a major haul, and they got some decent pieces. Jorge Perez, kind of being that guy that you can hope is that above average power second base type. But Miguel Vargas, like, having the White Sox learn their lesson about guys that don't really have a position. Like, you've had Vaughn in the outfield, you've had Gavin Sheets in the outfield, and he's not that bad, but he's not good at second. He's not really good in corner outfield, Vargas. And so what? He's a first baseman. Like, I thought they bailed the Dodgers out by taking him instead of an upside prospect at the lower levels. And then, Jorge Perez is just not enough for me. And then, the third piece that you mentioned, he's hurt. It's a contact oriented third baseman who's hurt. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm starting to question Chris Getz more and more and more, the way the Crochet situation was handled. And sure, you can say that was out of his control, but exactly. Why was it so far out of his control? I think you have to be managing these things a little bit better. I think you need to be on top of things a little bit better. And there's a second. There was some things that were good last deadline, but still some head scratchers of like, oh, I thought they'd do more. I understand that Robert was probably not going to get moved this deadline. I understand that Crochet kind of screwed you to a degree, but they had to do better than what they did, especially if you're going to package. Like, it wasn't just Fedde. And I know that Pham and Kopech aren't the most valuable in the world, but when you're putting those guys on top of Fedde, you'd expect them to bring in a better return than some of the other pitchers and even rental pitchers that were moved.
That's the thing. If it was Fedde alone, if it was Fedde for Vargas, Jorge Perez, Albertus, like, okay,
It's fine.
fine. But it was Fedde and Kopech and Pham. Like, come on. You have to do better. You have to do better, especially like, I think my immediate reaction wasn't as strong as yours, but like deal by deal, trade by trade. As more trades came in, I was like, oh my, it's looking shittier and shittier by the transaction, man. Like Kikuchi coming in. It was like I was driving to Milwaukee when this trade broke. And I was like, okay, like that, it's not great, but I can live with it. And then we get the Kikuchi thing, and I'm just like, are you kidding? I slept on it because I was overstimulated on Monday. I wake up on Tuesday, I was like, wait, that sucked. And we're gonna get to the Kikuchi thing here in a matter of transactions, but like, yeah, this was very, very disappointing from the Chicago White Sox, and they're one of the big losers of the deadline. They have to be.
They have to be because you end up not moving Crochet.
Yeah.
And, I'm okay with the Robert thing, but again, your system didn't get that much better. And I would have been really pushing for some higher upside prospects than what they got. And I think they valued Vargas way more than they should have. And I really loved him as a prospect, but I didn't realize how much he would back up athletically. And I think a lot of the injuries have kind of piled onto him there. Like, what are you hoping for from Miguel Vargas at this point? It's just another one of those guys that may fill, a replacement level role a little bit better than that. But like, he might also be similar to Lenyn Sosa. Like, I would be shooting for more upside. I'd be shooting for more upside than that. I really would.
Miguel Vargas turning into Lenyn Sosa would stink so bad. But like, you're right, it's in the cards, man. We just went 9.5 minutes on that one, but that's fine because it was one of the bigger trades at the deadline. So now we go to one that might actually be 20 seconds long. Justin Turner goes to Seattle for RJ Schreck, who's going from Seattle to Tampa. Sick last name for Mr. RJ. The guys at the Marine Layer podcast made a great point. It seems like Vlad was unavailable, and they probably aggressively pursued Vlad, and they settled on Turner. And that's all I've got here.
Yeah, I mean, Schreck, Duke guy, I think did his last year at Vandy. He's put up some decent numbers. So, like, I mean, it's Justin Turner at this point. So, not a bad get. Like, pretty patient, to makes above average contact. And Turner the other way, like, veteran. We've talked about how they just need more guys that have kind of been there, done that in the Mariners lineup. And I think he can serve a role for them. I know he's been putrid offensively this year, but even just having him in the fold there as they try to make the push, I think Turner's just a great guy to add to the clubhouse and still could serve a role for them.
That was 57 seconds. That was awesome. Okay. Lane Thomas here for three prospects. Alex Clemmie, the left-hander, was the second round pick last year, Rhode Island high school kid. Jose Tena, and then Rafael Ramirez Jr. Rafael Ramirez was in low A. Clemmie was in low A. Tena was in triple A with a big league taste already. For Lane Thomas, swipes bags. He is a good bat to add to the Guardians. I thought this was a ton to give up for him. A ton.
It was a lot. But what, one more year of control, Lane Thomas, after this year?
I think so.
Ramirez is kind of just a throw-in for me, right? 19 years old and striking out at a 33% clip in low A, hitting like a buck 87. So cast him aside. No offense, Rafael Ramirez. Clemmie was a lot, but Clemmie is also the antithesis of what the Guardians typically look for in pitching prospects. They went out and were able to sign him away from a commitment because they gave him $2.3 million as an overslot in the second round last year. And anytime you get a chance to add a 6'6" lefty that can run it up to 97, 98, and from a funky release, nasty slider, you take a chance on that. But I think quickly the Guardians are like, we don't have a lot of experience with these kind of guys. And I don't know if we have the patience for this kind of guy. It's a high effort delivery. I mean, you're seeing the stuff play. It's a 34% strikeout rate this year. But he's also walked guys at about a 15% clip. Yes. So great upside get for the Nationals. But I can also understand why the Guardians are like, you know what? We tried it. This is a steep hill for us to climb to try to get Clemmie right. So the Nationals, they were pumped about DJ Hers. They get an even more elevated and excited version, 6'6" lefty, that if the command can come along, he just turned 19. Plenty to like there. Again, the fallback is high leverage, nasty. Jose Tena was the interesting one too, because that's a guy that can slide right into the big league situation for them if they want. I think he got assigned to AAA in the meantime. But Tena added a ton more power this year. He was always going to be fringy with the hit tool. I know you've seen him a bunch. He's a little bit aggressive, but he's tapped into way more juice this season. 90th percentile exit velocity of 106.5 miles per hour. That's up like 2 or 3 ticks from last year. He's not the biggest dude ever, but he's just found a way to tap into way more power, kind of getting into the lower half more. He's aggressive. He swings and misses a bit too much. So those are two things that you have to monitor. But pretty good athlete, can play solid defense at several spots. And the fact that he can play a decent shortstop, can play solid third, can play a really good second base, can move all over, is kind of this utility infield type. It's a nice second piece to add into the fold there for a year and change of Lane Thomas.
Yeah, I thought Clemmie and Tena was a ton, but overpay of the deadline goes to.
Oh, sorry. We should probably talk about it first, though. The Guardians side.
Sure.
How much do you think that elevates the Guardians offense?
A little bit. I unfortunately just not that much. And I think Lane Thomas is a good player. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you swap out Will Brennan. I think Will Brennan was the corresponding move. He was optioned. So you swap out Will Brennan for a guy that is going to be in the 2 hole, maybe not, maybe in the 6 hole for them. Like
probably in the 2 hole.
You're probably in the 2 hole. Okay, so you get your 2 hole hitter that can swipe bags, can poke a couple out here and there. Yeah.
I would say he hit from way more power last year, and that was a surprising thing because, like, you want to see them add some juice. He had, 28 home runs last year, only 8 this year.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that he's just a right-handed bat for them. Yeah. I mean, when I went to Cleveland last week, I went to a ball game, watched our guy Tanner Bybee throw. There was one righty in the lineup that day. Like, that's crazy. That is. And, they're going to get or they get Josh Naylor back as well. So, yeah. I mean, you have Quan lefty, Ramirez switch hitter, Naylor lefty,
Jimenez,
Martinez switch hitter, Jimenez lefty, Schneemann lefty, Naylor lefty. So having a righty that you can actually play every day, I think definitely helps. Having a guy that they need to manufacture runs. They're not going to outslug these other teams. And leaning into the speed a little bit more now too is great. He's one of the faster players in the league. 28 bags this year?
I think so.
That helps a ton. So I do like the addition, but yeah, is that going to be a World Series winner? No, but it was a little bit more aggressive than we're used to from them, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, now overpay of the deadline goes to?
It goes to Dana Brown and the Houston Astros.
Yusei Kikuchi, the
Yeah.
rental that you're going to pay, what, $6 million through the end of this
Mm-hmm.
year, I think. The rental lefty with an ERA in the mid to high fours at this point,
Yep.
going from Toronto to Houston for Jake Bloss, the right-hander, and Joey Loperfido, and Will Wagner. Are you kidding me?
It's
Did
one of it,
This is somebody panicking on the phone.
yeah. And I don't know. I've seen people point the finger at Bagwell as well. Regardless, I mean, we haven't really seen Dana Brown prove that he can kind of pick up where these other GMs have left off. And maybe, just maybe, if you have a revolving door of GMs, eventually it's going to catch up to you a little bit. And it looks like that's exactly what's happening. We'll see. Brown deserves a little bit more time here, but it's not like he's been doing anything incredibly intelligent so far. I don't think there's been anything that kind of says, oh, he's like Click and oh, he's like some of the other guys that they've had. If anything, I think there's been some more head scratchers than we've really ever seen from the Astros. And I like seeing them be a little bit more aggressive now, but not in this way. And Will Wagner's a throw-in in this deal, right? He's
Yeah.
also the son of Billy Wagner.
Which
So
is
that whole
like
side of it
crazy
is,
throw in. Why are you throwing in that guy?
why are you throwing him in? He is kind of cut from a similar cloth of Spencer Horwitz. Like, slashing 307, 424, 429 this year, 17% walk rate, 10% K rate, only 5 homers, but like guys
Yeah.
raking
Yeah.
in AAA. And he's really hit at every single stop. Just doesn't have like a true defensive home. A little bit older. It's kind of that second baseman, third baseman type. But again, he's a really solid third piece as a bat. The crazy part though is for 3 months of Kikuchi for a team that, like, look, they've been playing well. But this isn't like the mighty Astros that we've seen in previous years. Like, I could get it if they really felt like they're a World Series favorite. I think they can do it. They can make a run, no doubt about it. But like, is Kikuchi going to put you over the top? Like, I even got it when they were, even though it's aging Verlander. Like, I understand trading Clifford and Gilbert for Verlander with control
It's Justin
and having the
Verlander.
money. Yeah, and it's Verlander. This I just don't understand at all. Loperfido was filling a role for you at this point, and Will Fultz would have filled a role for the foreseeable future.
That's the thing. Like, not just filling a role, like he was the first baseman moving forward. You traded the first baseman moving forward and an arm in your rotation moving forward and a high floor guy in AAA.
Yes. And also a guy that could fill in center if you need, while also being that first baseman if you need it in the future, while also being able to play a corner outfield spot if you need it. And the crazy thing is, Loperfido, like, you felt good enough about him to continue to, and he didn't play every day, but you throw him in center field and put him in big spots. And I thought he showed pretty well. I know he's been striking out at a fair clip, but who hasn't in their big league debut? And just trading him so quickly here for a rental, 6 years of Loperfido, and then 6 years of Bloss, who I know he hasn't been great in his big league debut either. But again, so a lot of arms haven't been great. Bloss has above average fastball characteristics at 94 miles an hour, and then has an assortment of like 4 secondaries that are all roughly average that he spots and mixes up. I could say with a high confidence interval that he's a back end of the rotation starter at the very least. So you traded 6 years of a back end of the rotation starter, 6 years of at worst a super utility type, and then another solid at least bench bat for 3 months of Yusei Kikuchi. I think this is one of the worst trades I've seen in a while. I really do.
Dude, I mean, when you lay it out like that, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And my initial reaction was like, oh, yeah. But once it marinates, it's like, oh, wait, that sucked so bad.
Real bad.
Um, I'm skipping Ahmed Rosario going to the Dodgers. Nice, he's back. It's another warm body bat. I'm skipping Jalen Beeks going to the Pirates, another left-hander in that bullpen for Freddie Peralta's younger brother, Luis Peralta, who's got a sub-1 this year in high A and double A, which is like kind of interesting that you give that up for Jalen Beeks. But now we jump to Frankie Montas. And Frankie Montas goes from Cincinnati to Milwaukee in division. Joey Wiemer's going home. Joey Wiemer, the Cincinnati Bearcat, goes to the Reds. Jacob Junis and Cash goes back to Cincinnati as well. This was a pretty good seller move for Cincinnati, I thought. Milwaukee, I wanted them to do something else. That's what we were talking about on the live stream. I was like, okay, Montes and
Yeah.
nothing was the and. Cincinnati gets a guy in Weimer who, needed to get out of that stressful environment of, wow, Frelick's better than me and Mitchell's better than me, and they already paid Chorio and they've got Yelich. Like, there was just going to be no space. Somebody was going to get pinched out in that Brewers outfield, and the Brewers and Matt Arnold just cleared up space there in the outfield, which probably makes, honestly, Garrett Mitchell breathe a little bit easier, which is a good thing for Milwaukee.
And Weimer, I'd seen some stretches where I just think he was domed up there, going back and forth. And he's just been so streaky. But this guy can go get it in center field, can play a good center field. When he runs into baseballs, he can hit them as hard as anybody. Then going back home will be good for the mental. And I mean, he's a freak athlete. So I think the change of environment's great. The approach has been better this year, and he has been swinging it better of late. If you look at his last 30 games in AAA, Weimer has an 829 OPS. And again, like he's going to play good defense in center field. He can run. He's going to steal some bags. He's cut the strikeout rate of late. So I think the Reds are buying here that, okay, maybe he started to figure things out. Even if you look at the last 20 games, hitting 303 with a 941 OPS while walking more than he's striking out. It's not a huge sample, but it's enough here. What we're talking about, a rental Montas. I like the addition there. They needed a right-handed hitting outfielder. Like Blake Dunn just was not going to fill that role for them. So Weimer with that power in that stadium could be really fun. So I think it's a great chance to take for them. But for the Brewers, look, it's not the sexiest move in the world. We knew they were never going to do anything crazy. I'm glad they at least got an arm.
For sure.
I'm glad they at least added another arm to the fold here. And when Montas is hot, he could be really good. I think we're accepting that it's probably a diminished version of what we saw when it was the best of Montas. But at the same time, I'm just glad the Brewers added a starting pitcher that isn't just negligible.
I want somebody that isn't Dallas Keuchel. Like, that's all I wanted. I just wanted somebody that isn't throwing 87 miles an hour, and we're not like running out the opening act of like AAA arms. Like, I just wanted something somewhat serviceable. And Frankie Montas, even over the last month and a half, 2 months, has been somewhat serviceable. And you could say, Jack, no, he hasn't. He's got a 5. Okay, like, I'd rather run that out knowing that I could get 6 innings of 4-run ball than like, hey, I might be scraping my bullpen in the second. I'd much prefer that Montas situation.
Yeah, and again, like it hasn't been great. The long ball has really crushed him of late, but getting out of, and I know the home road splits don't support the narrative, but I still think just getting out of Great American will help him. And for whatever reason, though, the long ball has crushed him, and it's not like he's going to the most hitter friendly environment or the most pitcher friendly environment in the world. Excuse me. But still, regardless, it's just nice to add a veteran arm to the fold there that isn't Dallas Keuchel. I agree.
And he's going to a better team. Like,
Yeah.
We kind of forget about that too. It's, okay, yeah, environment is everything, but also like vibes there are just going to be better. Like
Yep.
Milwaukee is clearly just a more positive clubhouse right now than the Cincinnati Reds have. So
No doubt.
I don't hate it at all. Speaking of vibes, Jorge Soler is an Atlanta Brave. Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson. Luke Jackson makes his way back to Atlanta. Tyler Matzik. Matzik traded for Jackson. Holy 2021 this is, huh? And Sabin Ceballos also goes to San Francisco. This was a weird one. I was reading a really good article in The Athletic by Tim Kawakami, and it was a dive into Farhan Zaidi's deadline. And it was like, he did nothing to make new friends. He did nothing to keep the old ones. He did nothing that, would bring the pitchforks out. It was in essence like, he's calm and calculated, and I'm kind of getting sick of the calm and calculated thing. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's fair. But they got out from under the Soler money. I don't think it's getting out from under. Like, I found this fascinating that they commit, what, a 3-year deal to Jorge Soler, and they move him 3 months in, 4 months in.
It's bizarre, especially considering the fact that over his last 40 games, he's flashing 281, 391, 493. It's an 884 OPS. I understand that they've probably frustrated the fact that he's clogs the DH spot, but didn't you know that when you signed him? So like, I don't know if that could really be the reason why. Also, like, I know that it was not great through the first half of the season. He's always been a streaky hitter and usually a guy that likes to perform better in the second half. So why are you trading him when he's finally playing the way that you're expecting? Straight salary dump, but then you don't dump some of the other salaries. Like if you're going to trade Soler, why not trade Chapman? And why not trade some of these other players here? Maybe they felt as though, right away that, okay, you know what? It's just not a great fit here, I guess. But like, again, it really does just continue to make me doubt Farhan Zaidi further if I possibly could. And it just seems like there's this in between of not really wanting to fix your mistakes because you're like, oh, we're all in. But then also at some points, just getting out from under deals that they just decide aren't great fits. That just kind of confuses me. They could have probably got a nice haul for Snell too. They decide not to, and what, they're going to lose him in free agency now. He's probably going to shove the rest of the way and opt out. So I just don't. I don't totally understand their approach. The farm system's not that great. It's fine. They have money tied up with a lot of different dudes, and they didn't really trim much of the fat. From the Brave side, though, like they're bringing back a lot of familiar faces that did a lot of great things with them. And I don't blame them for the way that the year is kind of gone for them and the frustration. Like this could be the spark that they needed.
Does San Fran have an approach?
I don't think so.
Like I would say that most teams have an approach. I don't think you could even argue that the Angels have an approach, and their approach is like be shitty.
Yeah,
Like
it's moronic, but they have one, which is
they
just
have one.
rush everyone to the big leagues and
Fast track first rounders and call it a day, and keep everything and
yeah.
let guys leave in free agency instead of cashing in. But like it's a bad approach. You could call it an approach. I don't think the Giants have an approach. I think they're like, oh yeah, this
This
sounds
sounds
good.
good. Yeah,
Let's
I
run with
like
it.
that player. There's no system, and which is funny because you have a unique ballpark. You have something that you can lean into there for sure. And they don't really build in a way that could like leverage their ballpark, being a pitcher's park, whatever it may be. They don't really leverage anything, and they spend a lot of money. They've tried to spend more, but
That's
it just seems like they just throw money at certain opportunities that they like, and then don't build any infrastructure around it, and then randomly will get out from under certain deals that I don't think we're that bad. So I don't get it.
Yeah. So that's my thing. Like I think, and this is not a play on their name, I think they're a sleeping giant. I think they could be really good for a really long time and build something sustainable and pay a lot of money to keep it going. And they're just not doing it. They're putting money in weird places. And they're, again, like you're saying, they're not putting money in obvious places, it seems. But we'll move to the Yankees here, who did bolster their bullpen a little bit, getting Mark Leiter Jr. from the Cubs. Mark Leiter for Ben Cowles, an infielder, and Jack Neely, right-hander, who's like 6'8", 250. That's like 13 and a half, 14 Ks per nine between Somerset and Scranton. Mark Leiter is 13 Ks per nine. I saw this note on MLB.com. Mark Leiter, since coming off the injured list, has gone 23 up, 23 down.
Oh,
You want a good reliever, man? Like, I was not calling Mark Leiter a good reliever in 22, but last year and this year, he's been undeniably good. And man, like, you didn't get to see it come through with Efros yet. I think they're getting a good setup guy in Mark Leiter Jr. here.
I mean, we've seen it now. When he's healthy, that splitter's gross, and he's not even going to be one of their like main guys out of that pen. I love it, and for the Cubs' perspective, they didn't want to fully sell. I like that. We talked about the Paredes edition, but you should definitely cash in on some relief pieces, especially when they're hot the way they are. And Cowles is a good piece, infield guy to be able to add to the fold that could give you some depth very soon. And then they've been collecting super tall arms all of a sudden now too. A couple teams are starting to do that, but you get an intriguing arm as well, and they could use all the arms I think they can get right now in that system too. Pretty solid when you're cashing in on Leiter, but I think this really does help fortify the Yankees bullpen. And think about the price that has been paid on a lot of these other relievers and higher price, like higher prize names, a little bit more hype around them. Instead, you're getting these another arm that maybe doesn't come with it as much sex appeal, but at the same time could give you just as much production and just as much, I think, high leverage quality if they need it. But I don't even think he needs to throw that much high leverage.
I don't think so. Colby Olson just walked by in the background. Elite posture. Really good
Yeah.
posture on his walk. Yeah, across the screen. I thought that was impressive. Okay, Lucas Sims goes to the Boston Red Sox. The sweeper's kind of nasty if you don't know about him. Reds reliever. I saw Kyle Bodie tweet about him. It's like, hey, good to have you back, man, because I think he was a Bodie guy in Cincinnati. There's clearly something legit with this sweeper and Sims going to the Boston Red Sox. And it's not like he's going to throw high leverage, but this is a good guy to add to the bullpen stable that was decent this year at a 3.6 in it was like 40 Ks in 35 innings. It was decent enough. And he's not going to throw the eighth. He's not going to throw the ninth. But you need him in the seventh in a 3-run game. This can work.
Yeah, and they seem to talk about a plan. The Red Sox have a plan with the arms that they're attacking, and again, they're attacking sometimes familiar faces. So I like that, and I like them doing that. The same time, it's a rental, so we'll see. But maybe if things go well and they like him, they know it's somebody that they can bring back. But low cost, might as well try it. And the Red Sox should be adding very gently,
Yep.
given where they're at. It's a kind of move that I think makes a lot of sense.
Miami masterclass started with the Trevor Rogers deal. Trevor Rogers goes to Baltimore to be the 5. What do they get in return, you ask? Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. Holy shit, dude. This was awesome. Tom and
Mhm.
Peter Bendix W.
Peter Bendix, man. I I said this on Twitter, but I can't believe that the intern that climbed his way up in a matter of 10 plus years within one of the more forward thinking organizations in baseball didn't just forget everything about baseball when he became the Marlins general manager. I understand the Marlins are the Marlins, and organizationally they're run kind of poorly as just a franchise. But Peter Bendix is a guy that has had success at various roles, climbing his way up to Tampa to the general manager role, gets poached with a really good opportunity to basically be the head of baseball operations, essentially, for the Marlins and call a majority of the shots. And now you've got a guy that gets to flex his muscles. This deadline, I think, was more creative and has really had a plan of attack here. I mean, it's been really exciting, and the pieces that they're getting aren't these lottery ticket lower level guys.
No.
It's more higher upper minors pieces that can fill into your lineup by end of this year, early next year, and with the pitching staff that they have, I think it sets them up really well. Norby he's going to AAA, but he could be playing second base for them in the next week or two. And Stowers should go to the big leagues immediately and see what he can do in the outfield. That's two guys already that can slot into your lineup for next year too.
Yeah. Josh Bell goes to Arizona. This is like super simple. He's filling in while Christian Walker's on the IL. He was already on waivers. That's all I got.
Do you think Rogers, by the way, though, is like,
No,
you think something clicks there?
no.
Do you think he's just going to be what, high fours guy for the Orioles?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think he's going to throw an inning in the postseason. Like I could see that. I could see that kind of guy getting left off the postseason roster. I thought. Do you see a world where he gets left off?
I don't know about that.
I
Yeah, I don't
mean,
know.
where does he slot in?
I wish like if he had better like lefty splits or something that would help. But I just feel like if you're giving up Norby, and I know that they just have this glut of prospects, but yeah, I'd figure he slots in the back end of the rotation. Yeah, maybe he just ends up being on mop up duty or whatever it may be. But yeah, it was surprising. Stowers though for them, like at this point, they just had to throw him
Oh
into
yeah,
just about any
totally.
deal.
Nothing.
And Norby, like he's a good piece to add for the Marlins, but at the same time, I'm probably not letting that stop me from getting a back end of the rotation starter for 2 more seasons after this one, and a guy that has flashed more than what he is right now, and you hope can maybe put something together moving forward. I thought it was good for both sides, but it was, I think, a lot more than people were expecting, and I think Norby immediately becomes one of their better infield options and helps them.
I'll push back a little bit. I thought this was a clear-cut Marlins win. Like I understand Trevor Rogers has something left in the does he? He was really good in 2021.
He's been really good or really solid and serviceable over the last probably handful of starts. Like his last 4 starts, he's got a 3 ERA. His last 5 starts, well, his last 5 starts, 24 innings. He's a 3.38 ERA. Like if he can just maintain anything near that, 5 1/3, 2 runs roughly, like that's what he's been doing.
I don't
That
see
could play.
I don't see him killing any side of the plate, like you're saying, where you wish the lefty splits were a little bit more egregious. If I'm building a postseason roster, he's the perfect guy to help me get through the regular season, especially with Bradish
Yeah.
down, especially with Wells down, especially with Means down, all of that going on. But I get to the postseason, I've got my, four that I'm running out in Burns, in G-Rod, in Eflin, and Kramer. I'm going with Kramer over Trevor Rogers. And my thought is, I've got space for one long man. Do I want the swing and miss capability of Chase
Yeah,
McDermott, or do I want Trevor Rogers on that roster? I go
no,
with
it's
the swing
valid.
and miss ability of McDermott.
It's valid. I just think there's not really a world where the Orioles look back at this one and they feel like they got burned. I mean,
No, I don't think so.
Norby's he's at best he's an everyday second baseman, and Stowers I think is kind of a fourth outfielder type. So but it's still great for the Marlins, but when you have the system that the Orioles have, and
They,
you don't want to give up anything too substantial for some of these other pieces, I'll take a back end of the rotation starter for the next 2 years and change.
no doubt. Bell is a Diamondback. Cool.
Yeah, Christian Walker's hurt. Fills in the meantime. He's been swinging a hot bat. Good for the clubhouse. It's salary dump.
Easy. Okay, we go to Lucas Erceg now. This was a fun one. Lucas Erceg goes to Kansas City, again bolstering that bullpen. Mason Barnett, Will Klein, Jared Dickey go back to Oakland. Will Klein is a guy that could have back of the bullpen type stuff. Problem is he struggles to find the strike zone and the vicinity around the strike zone on occasion, but when he's in the strike zone, he can be gross. Erceg is one of the better feel good stories in baseball because he was a failed position player prospect that turned into a very good setup guy in the front 2 months of the season. And we were talking with Kevin Henry on the live stream. Erceg built all of his value in the front 2 months. This is awesome that Oakland found value in a Lucas Erceg, and I think Kansas City's getting a pretty damn good reliever.
Yeah, win for both sides. Barnett, by the way, is kind of the key piece here, I think, going to Oakland. He's been really solid in double A and gets a fair amount of swing and miss. Fastball sits 95, good slider, mixes in a curveball and a changeup. So I think that's a guy that could be a back end of the rotation starter. I think could even be a decent four. So that's a good get there. But for the Royals, just keep fortifying that bullpen. I mean, that's what we want to see because that's been kind of the biggest liability there. And yeah, Erceg has tapered off a little bit, but they don't need him to be even the first 2 months. Erceg, if he's somewhere in the middle, they'll take that because there's a lot of fives in front of the ERA on some of these arms that are shouldering a lot of innings in this Royals pen. So he's instantly an upgrade and still one of their better bullpen arms immediately. So I love that getting nothing that is going to hurt you too much from the Royals, but Barnett was a good piece to part with and some other throw-ins there, as you mentioned, and Klein has some loud stuff, but yeah, with the control that comes with Erceg, I think it's great for both sides.
Yeah. Royals acquire Paul DeYoung for right-handed pitching prospect. The Mariners go grab JT Chagua for Will Schomburg, who's putting together a good season so far.
He's
Three and
funky,
92 innings.
funky.
Is he?
Yeah, there's some video that our guy Elijah put out on the call up. He's funky. He's got some interesting stuff.
Cool.
But
Chagua.
Chagall's been good too. Is another low key bullpen arm. I like those moves when it's so expensive to get some of these higher end guys. Chagall's been pretty good.
Yeah. Paul Blackburn goes to the New York Mets.
All star.
Blackburn for Cade Morris. So Cade Morris is the return going to Oakland. He's, I guess back end of the Mets top prospect list. But Blackburn, all-star last year, got a 4.4 this year. But he was hurt for the majority of the year.
Yeah,
Blackburn is like a safe 5 for the Mets to get them through the regular season.
especially with Sang out for the rest of the regular season. They just need someone that can go in there and get innings, and he can be that swing man for you. I don't think you're going to be too worried about trading Cade Morris, who could, I think, eventually be Paul Blackburn. So that's a nice low budget acquisition for the Mets that I think helps them this year to give a little bit of a push and beyond that.
Andrew Chafin goes to Texas. I thought this was kind of fun for Texas because it showed you that they weren't entirely out on competing this year. And they didn't sell as much as I thought they would. Lorenzen was going to turn into surplus when everybody else got healthy. So that made a lot of sense. But I thought getting Chafin was the clear, hey, we're not waving the white flag whatsoever. And this whole term soft sell, gone.
Yeah, well, hey, DeGrom's throwing a bullpen again, so we never know what's going to happen here. We could have something special, happen down the stretch. I love that they're giving it a shot. Chafin's been solid. Adds another left-hander to the pen. Yeah, but he's a free agent after this year, right?
Chafin is, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. They still believe a little bit. I like that too.
I don't hate it whatsoever. Trevor Richards goes to Minnesota. That was Minnesota's only move. Like, we're not spending any time on Trevor Richards, but Twins, come on. Like, I'm poking you with the stick. Like, do something. It's that meme. It's like, what was this deadline for them?
I guess they saw the prices that were going out and they're like, if
I'm
we're
out.
healthy, if we're healthy and our guys are doing what they're supposed to do, where do we really have a gaping hole? There might not be a huge gaping hole for them.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to hope that they can kind of win from within here. But I mean, yeah, a little bit boring.
Funny one was Bryan De La Cruz going from the Marlins to the Pirates. Bryan De La Cruz, 3.5 years of control, all three RBers left. Garrett Forrester and the right-hander Jun-Suk Shim. Shim is a 20-year-old South Korean IFA guy, big money IFA guy. When he's been on the mound at the complex, he's going to win a billion Cy Young awards. Problem is, he's been on the mound for about 3 innings
I
in
think it's
2 years.
8. I think it's 8.
8 innings over the last 2 years. The stuff is as crazy as you could possibly imagine from a 20-year-old at the complex, but he's a 20-year-old at the complex with 8 professional innings under his belt.
Yeah, I think he signed for like 750,000, which is big for a South Korean international free agent.
Yeah.
Uh, he dealt with the elbow issue in 21 and then like a pec issue in 23 and then like a ankle issue another time. So he's just been totally banged up. But I've been able to get a little bit of TrackMan data on him. It's a mid 90s fastball up to 97 with 18 inches of vert from a below average release height. So crazy characteristics there. Then he has a slider that is again, this is a small sample here, but about 18 inches of horizontal. It's a true sweeper, like zero vert, 18 inches of horizontal. And then he has a curveball that has eclipsed 3,200 RPM. So I think the Pirates at this point are like, we don't know if this guy's ever going to be able to throw. Like, he's just never on the field. So they move him. 3.5 years of De La Cruz helps, but I'm not a big Bryan De La Cruz guy. He can't really play defense. And I think he's a lefty platoon guy probably.
Yeah, but even
But
then, I was looking at the OPS against
yeah,
lefties. It's not
that's the thing.
800.
He doesn't even, yeah, it's not like he mashes lefties, but low cost, I guess at the end of the day for them, for the Marlins to turn that into, especially with the outfield bets that you got, to turn it into an upside piece here that has loud stuff. Look out for Shim. I thought that was a fun addition, and that's a Bendix move that I think the other people in charge in the past probably weren't even considering.
On the Pirates front, I do like that they got corner outfield help. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that Taylor Ward was probably priority A, but when they realized that the Angels were going to be silly again, they pivoted to Bryan De La Cruz, and better this than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're trading a guy that's thrown 8 professional innings, and then Forrester's just kind of a more of a depth guy, anyways.
Power bat and high A, yeah, like it's
I
cool.
mean, De La Cruz is a major leaguer, and he's a slightly above replacement level player at the very worst. When he gets hot, he can really swing it, and I think it's a guy that can help them. Maybe they're hoping he can continue to get a little bit better, but you're getting 3+ years of him. They didn't need to deplete the farm, and he helps. He definitely helps.
Yeah, Mets got 4.5 years of Huascar Brazoban here.
Yeah,
Brazoban,
as long as he doesn't have visa issues, yes.
yeah, but like Sneaky has a sub 3 and 30 and 2/3. And by the way,
Oh,
it's all about like getting the visa taken care of in December. Like that's what I've realized because Domingo Herman didn't get to Bradenton for like 3 months because his visa was just like yeah he was screwed on that front.
every Brazoban's got like at least a 2-year streak of just not being able to
Visa
come
issues.
back.
Tell
I
me to
don't know.
start doing it before Christmas.
I don't know what the deal is there. There might be more at hand. I have no clue. But he's nasty. He's one of those sneaky guys where if you compile the last few seasons, you're like, whoa, his numbers have been pretty good. That was a good get for the Mets.
Yeah.
Fun prospect though for the Marlins to take a shot on third baseman at the lower levels.
Wilfredo Lara is
Yep.
his name. I don't know anything about him, but I believe you. And why not just go find a fun prospect at the lower levels if somebody wants Huascar Brazoban?
Yeah.
Eloy Jimenez. You're a Baltimore Oriole. This was something I was not expecting at all. I thought there were going to be no suitors. Turns out like Trey Mago is the suitor, is the guy that it's worth. This felt like the White Sox getting out from under this and this money, and the Orioles giving him a shot to show a level of investment on a good team. It's
Yeah.
Trey Mago, again, left-hander, 27 years old. Um, but I mean, dude, like Eloy Jimenez, if he's on the field, this could work for Baltimore. This could be another bat, and like he's, one of the more dangerous seven hitters in baseball.
When he's not hitting the ball on the ground on an egregious clip.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be mostly bench bat, like hit lefties a little bit situation. But why not take a shot with what he's capable of and the upside and the raw power? See if you can get him right.
Give it a whirl. I don't know. There's not much to be had there anymore, I don't think. I think it's so far gone.
Maybe they get him right. It's worth a flyer for literally nothing.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. White Sox also dished Tanner Banks out to Philly for William Bergola, which, all right, cool. He was one of your better performing relievers, and you got a prospect in return for Tanner Banks. I want to jump to Dylan Carlson here, who goes from St. Louis to Tampa. We knew that he was the odd man out of the outfield situation moving forward. What a fall from grace this was, because Dylan Carlson, not long ago, was considered top 15 prospect in baseball, top 20 prospect in baseball.
I mean, just with the glove, with the makeup, with the switch hitting and a sneaky pop, people have long liked him. But at this point, which is crazy because he's still 25, but at this point, seems like he's kind of that fourth outfielder mold. The Rays like to take shots on guys like this. They also like to identify a value. In the past, he had been much more effective from the right side. This year, he's just been neither, and he's just looked totally lost. Since another one of those just flyer situations, but at the very least, he can go get it in the outfield.
The 59 games that he's played this year have been disgusting,
Yeah,
slashing one in a bad way, 198, 275, 240. No homers, 11 driven in 59 games.
I don't know
That's
what
so
happened.
it's so disappointing.
I don't know what happened. Even last year when he was bad, at least he had a 760 OPS from the right side with good defense. This year it's just totally gone. I don't know what
Horrible.
the deal is.
So the Orioles are stockpiling these outfield types. Like you got Pache and you got Austin Slater. Baltimore went and got Slater and Livan Soto from Cincinnati for a player to be named later or cash. Slater was not playing well, but I think he just goes to Norfolk. I thought this was a very, very minor deal, but Slater had some name recognition there, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I thought about it, and I was like, he's not going to be on the team in a week, I don't think.
I think he's the insurance policy for the lefty masher role. Like I can't really think of anything else other than that.
Yeah,
Insurance, but and he's not even mashing lefties this year either. Another guy that like that's what he was doing for a while, and now he's not even doing that. So I don't know. I think it's AAA depth.
yeah. Okay. Dylan Floro goes from Washington to Arizona for Andres Chaparro. Chaparro was like hitting as well as anybody in minor league baseball. I don't know what the data looks like, but the stats on the 332, 403, 564 in Reno this year, he was as productive as Davison De Los Santos was essentially without like the crazy, crazy juice that Davison showcased. But Floro has been awesome. 52 and a 30. He's got a 206 with Washington. And it was Finnegan Harvey, Finnegan Harvey, Finnegan Harvey. Floro was as good this year. The stuff is loud, nowhere close. But the production's there, and Arizona just lengthened the bullpen a little bit.
He's got a track record too, and the D-backs have wanted to add to the bullpen. They did in several spots, and this is just another kind of more mid-relief type of guy. But even Floro, like despite it doesn't scream high leverage, he has experience in high leverage, plenty. So it's just a guy that's been there, done that for a little bit, and the Marlins definitely had used him probably too much in high leverage. When's the last time a minor league free agent signing has been traded for a big leaguer? Because that's Chaparro was a Yankees prospect, performed pretty well last year, but they lose him in minor league free agency to the D-backs, and then the D-backs turn him into a reliever. It's pretty cool.
That's and like a good reliever, not just
Yeah.
a random, 4.5, 5 ERA guy. Like they
No,
turn him into a guy with a 206. That's really cool.
pretty wild.
I can't even think of precedent for that.
No, I'm sure there's some example somewhere, but it's rare. So it's a good scouting find and a nice little found addition there for the D-backs.
Yeah. The only person I feel good for in this Giants Tigers trade for Mark Canha is Mark Canha. I think Bay Area guy went to Berkeley, has now played for the A's and the Giants. He's like the third guy to ever do that. I saw that note. Dalton Jeffries is another one. So cool for him. This was a nothing burger. Another nothing burger that like looks like it's more than it actually is. Kevin Kiermaier going to the Dodgers for recently DFA'd Ryan Yarbrough, who's going to go to Toronto. It's nothing. Kiermaier's retiring at the end of this year.
It's a favor.
He'll go be a vibe machine. I don't. Would you roster him if you were the Dodgers?
I mean, he's not getting rostered in the postseason, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you'll roster him for the rest of the regular season?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he can still play good center field. I don't know the exact like active roster situation for them, but I, I'd consider it, especially if Outman's continuing to struggle and who knows. But at the same time, he's a vibes guy. He has a chance to win a ring in his final year. And I think the Jays probably just said, like, hey, we want to send you to a contender so you can go out, playing some meaningful games, especially now that we acquired like multiple outfielders. You're not going to play at all here. Would you rather at least not play on a contender? And I think for the Dodgers, he's definitely a good culture guy to add. And I do think he'll probably see some run in the outfield.
Dodgers are super lame, going from 86-mile-an-hour Ryan Yarbrough to 102-mile-an-hour Michael Kopech. Like everybody likes Velo. Go be different.
Yeah.
Embrace difference. Embrace unique. Um, Gregory Soto is the second Orioles to Phillies trade or Phillies to Orioles trade. We talked about this. So Seranthony Dominguez went from the Philly bullpen to the Baltimore bullpen. Gregory Soto followed like 48 hours later. So that
Yeah.
first deal was Austin Hayes going from Baltimore to Philly for Pache and Seranthony Dominguez. This is Soto going from Philly to Baltimore for right-handed pitching prospect Seth Johnson and
Hmm.
Moises Chasse. I have no idea,
I don't know.
but Seth Johnson is the big one here. Seth Johnson is the guy that you have long liked since he was an Astros prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good characteristics on the fastball, gets great carry. As yeah, it was one of those poorly timed Tommy Johns where he kind of misses like 2 seasons. But I mean, he's been pretty good this year since he's come back. I'd like to see the command a little bit better, but he can spin it. Fastball has good characteristics. I think he's an important upper minors right-handed pitching depth guy that they didn't really have, especially with some of the moves that they've made in Philly. Just being able to add him to the fold is nice there. I really hope that we get like an Orioles Phillies World Series because it'd be funny to see some of these pieces square off against each other. But for the Orioles, Soto's solid. I don't trust him ever. He's one of those guys that's nasty. When he's on, he's like, whoa. But I just don't trust him.
Yeah.
So, but he's been fine this year. Solid addition. But I was kind of surprised to see them part with Seth Johnson. The only reason they were probably okay with doing that was they ended up adding Patrick Riley, who is almost the same exact thing
Yeah.
with maybe a little bit more lively of an arm and younger. So I think they're looking at a 40-man crunch situation where Seth Johnson probably does get taken in a Rule 5. Someone maybe does take a chance on him. So it allows them to have a little bit more 40-man flexibility. And, for the Phillies, I think they're okay with maybe using that 40-man spot on Seth if needed.
I didn't have the Billy Cook Patrick Riley trade in here because it was prospect by prospect. For all the prospect breakdowns, like go to the call up, and we're going to be doing that. I think it's going to be multiple episodes here where we're like getting
Oh
into
yeah.
all of these notable prospects that are being moved. But we jump to Luis Garcia here. We've got a couple more and two big ones at the tail end. But Luis Garcia, the Angels reliever, was like the only Angels move they made post Estevez. He goes to the Boston Red Sox for Ryan Zefferjon, Matthew Lugo, Jefferson Vargas, Nico Cavadas. The Red Sox don't feel this. I texted you, Nico Cavadas and Sonny DeShera are in the same organization. College mashers, which one's your favorite? All we need is Ivan Melendez in there as well.
Oh, that'd be
Uh,
electric.
but like, this was cool, and I know Slayton just hit the IL, so yeah, Luis Garcia is a nice right-handed reliever to add to this fold.
Yeah, another just a low cost. Might as well see if you can fortify the bullpen a little bit and give it a shot.
Martin Perez adds some innings to the back of the Padre rotation. He won't be a postseason starter for the San Diego Padres if they can find themselves there. It was interesting that the Yankees got Angel De Los Santos. I had no idea what Cleveland was doing when they moved De Los Santos for Barlow, but they clearly knew something. De Los Santos has not been that good. Brandon Lockridge is the return. We'll talk about Lockridge a little bit on the call up, I think, but De Los Santos was, like you're taking a shot on him in the Yankee bullpen, and you're hoping that he can capture that, form that he had last year in Cleveland because he was awesome last year in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that trade was kind of a little bit of a cue, right? I think you nailed that one, and it's been rough. But the stuff's good. He sits 96, so
Yeah.
see if the Yankees can get him right. They've clearly had plenty of success with relievers.
Three more. Least sexy of the three. Alex Cobb goes to Cleveland for Jacob Bresnahan and a player to be named later. Bresnahan apparently is like very stuffy, but Cobb, this is a good back end ad for Cleveland, who needed very similar to Milwaukee, I think, more similar than we were willing to admit. Cleveland has long been a factory where, hey, you've got five at least intriguing starters. They ran Joey Cantillo out. Cantillo, we're big fans of as a person and as, a change-up artist. Like, was he a guy that you wanted at this stage in his progression, starting every fifth day for a team that hopes to win a division? No.
No,
You go
no.
get Cobb. This really helps.
Yeah, I mean, Cobb been there, done that, 36 years old, but also looks like he's back. He's sitting 93, 94. That splitter is gross. You can mix in a couple breaking balls. We've seen him have some really good stretches. A guy threw a no-hitter last year, right? So I liked this addition a lot in the back end of back end of the rotation. Gavin Williams starting to look solid again, but this is just a much needed arm that if he starts to heat up and shake off the rust over the final 2 months, it's a guy that could actually pitch some meaningful postseason innings for you too.
I tried dunking on Gavin Williams, like saying he wasn't healthy on the live stream, and you were like, actually, he just went five shutout, 8 Ks. And I look and I was like, oh yeah, that was the 1 day game that we had on Wednesday. Of course, I didn't watch that, but no, I
Sorry.
want to go back and watch. I'm going to go watch the shit out of that start for Gavin
The
Williams.
fastball was playing. It's starting to have that life again, baby.
A good Gavin Williams fastball, like that's appointment viewing for me. I will go back. I'm not watching the condensed game. I'm watching like the full half
Mm-hmm.
innings of like, let me see you work. It's very fun for me. Two more big ones. Tanner Scott goes from the Marlins to the San Diego Padres. Brian Hoeing joins him. Robbie Snelling comes back. Adam Major comes back. Graham Pauley comes back. Jay Bashirs comes back. Dude, you have to be doing backflips right now. This was such a fun Marlins trade. Do the Padres get their elite reliever that they wanted? Yes, they do. Adams and Scott joining that Padre bullpen is really cool. Brian Hoeing can throw innings for the San Diego
He's
Padres.
actually
Like,
pretty good since they've moved him to the bullpen. He's actually been pretty solid.
there we go, man. Like, you get two good relievers, one great one and one pretty good one. But the Marlins, it, I got to take my glasses off. Lesko and Snelling are not Padre farmhands, and it was for Jason Adam and Tanner Scott.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What was that?
I get it. Both have really struggled. Both have a 6 ERA this year.
Sure.
You have a guy here in Robbie Snelling who's 20. This dude was a 4-star linebacker recruit with offers from like every SEC school. So he's a phenomenal athlete. The stuff is backed up this year. He threw 108 innings last year, if you include the postseason start, and comes back. And that was his first professional season. 1.82 ERA between low A, high A, double A. The Marlins just were blessed with the opportunity to take over a development failure because the Padres scout with the best of them. They do not develop well at all. We've talked about it with Mackenzie Gore just being lost there. Ryan Weathers, they have that opportunity to get him right and look at how good he has been for them this year before getting hurt with a finger thing, but clearly has figured it out for the Marlins. Snelling now, you get a guy that has had a sophomore slump in his professional career here. Stuff backed up a little bit. Fastball has been down a tick. The release has actually changed a little bit. Okay, fine. He's 20. I have a lot of confidence that with an offseason to look back, reflect, see how he can get himself right. We got to interview him on the call before the season. Check that interview out. He was awesome. But absolute grinder. He's got that football player's mentality. I have confidence to kind of find how to get himself right. But now you add him to the fold of this Marlins pitching stable. Crazy. Padres, though, this is the kind of move that could help put you over the top. Tanner Scott is pitching like Josh Hader. Like he is pitching like the best closer in baseball. He's pitching like as dominant as any closer we've seen in a little bit, especially just with the way he's been able to go out and get 4-out saves when you need it. Like he can do a little bit of everything for you, and he's just gutsy. Watched it when the Marlins, and he's a big reason why the Marlins had one of the craziest one-run win streaks ever last year. Scott can be a guy that pushes them forward, but for the Marlins to get someone with the upside like Snelling, then also I know Paulie's been rough this year, but they've pushed him way too aggressively, threw him into the big leagues, and then now he's back down in AAA. He had barely played in AA last year. Like he's at a weird situation. Buy low on him, and you get a little bit more beyond that. I mean, Major is another guy that I think they can get right too, and could slot into the rotation sooner rather than later as well. That has shown to be dominant at the lower levels too. Again, I felt like the Marlins kind of bought low on several guys here that have so much talent, have performed well not that long ago for a rental reliever and Brian Hoeing. You got to feel very good if you're a Marlins fan with the direction that they finally have.
They're eventually going to run out of spots in that starting pitching picture. And that starting pitching picture in Miami looks unbelievable right now. I'm just thinking about like IL and prospects that they've got at this point. Max Meyer is active. Okay. Jesus Luzardo, Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez, I'm at 4. Braxton Garrett, I'm at 5. Noble Meyer, Thomas White, Robbie Snelling. Who am I missing? That's 8.
Edward Cabrera,
Edward
for
Cabrera,
whatever
that's
that's
9.
worth.
Major, that's 10.
Sixto Sanchez.
Roddery Munoz, Kyle Tyler. I mean, dude, that's 10 legit starting pitching names that we just rattled off.
And Ryan Weathers.
What, 11? That's 11 starting pitching names. Good ones.
Like yeah, that's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Like Ryan Weathers is a 3.55 ERA this year, in 13 starts. So they can go out now and in the offseason if Luzardo's healthy or early next season if he's thrown well. You trade Luzardo, what kind of hole is that going to get you still? Now with still some multiple years of control, or at least a year and a half. They're in the driver's seat all of a sudden to get all of these bats, and you could still end up moving Luzardo. You're in a great spot.
Yeah. Okay. Last but certainly not least, Jack Flaherty goes to the LA Dodgers. This is great. I feel like you've been saying that for a very long time. Harvard Westlake kid is coming home, right? Southern California guys and LA Dodgers. It might have been Peter that was saying it. I feel like it was you though. He goes from Detroit to the Dodgers for Tyrone Lorenzen and Trey Sweeney. Tyrone Lorenzen, a power hitting catching prospect who's in high A. Trey Sweeney, who was swapped for Yorbit Vivas this offseason in a Dodgers Yankees swapped. And now he finds himself knocking on the door of the big leagues. Lorenzen solves the future problems catching wise for the Detroit Tigers. He is their quote unquote catcher of the future if all goes according to plan. But the Dodgers, they didn't really feel this. It was either Rushing or Lorenzen that was going to be on the move. I thought that was clear as day. And the fact that they got away with moving Lorenzen and not Rushing, wow, man.
Um, especially considering what the return was for Kikuchi. Jack Flaherty's been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball this year.
Yeah.
Strikeout minus walk rate, like it's as dominant as anybody. And I know there was something leaked and discussed about the medicals, and however that got out. By the way, I hope there's some accountability there. There was some weird stuff
That's
going on
horrible.
there. Yeah.
Also, how
So
does this always have to do with the Yankees?
hey, they use the media well, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Good job.
I I don't know if that drove down the price ultimately. Did you see the report that and Lorenzo's a good prospect? I want to preface with that.
Yeah.
Instantly has the highest 90th percentile exit velocity in the entire Tigers organization.
Really?
Oh, yeah. 108 miles an hour.
What's Keith sitting at? I'm trying to think of like the
He
other.
sits more like 105. He just elevates with the best of them.
Got it. Okay.
108's crazy. Like
Yeah.
108 is top 1% minor league baseball.
Yeah.
So what's crazy to me though is this is a guy in Lorenzen who had an 1,003 OPS from the left side last year. and like an 800 OPS from the right side. Then this year, he has totally flip flopped, and he has been way worse from the left side, like 600 something OPS, and then way better from the right side. That's always weird to me, and I don't know what to make of that. So just something to monitor. But plus raw power has improved behind the dish. And still needs a little bit of work, but has improved behind the dish. Good approach. Just needs to prove that he can hit enough. And that's the big question. Then I think finding consistency with both sides, but definitely the catcher of the future for them and a nice get. And then Sweeney, can maybe fill in as a depth middle infield guy, whatever it may be. But did you see the report that the Tigers were offered the same thing for like the Kikuchi package
Yeah.
from the Astros, and they said no?
Yeah.
And it was apparently a little bit more. And I heard the same thing elsewhere. So like whenever that happens on multiple fronts, like sounds like
You start
it's
to
probably
validate it.
true. Scott Harris probably got a little too cute there. Did all right with Lorenzo, but I would have rather have had that Blue Jays package plus another fun young outfield prospect.
I think so. I mean, dude, like, I'm just thinking package by package. I would probably rather, if I were in the Tiger situation, have Bloss, Loperfido, Wagner alone than
And
Lorenzo Sweeney. And
and
the fact that there was more attached
more.
to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But Lorenzo individually, I think fills a need better than any of those players in any of the deals.
I think
So
so.
maybe there was that preference there. And Lorenzo's upside is crazy, but he's also kind of bucks the trend of what Scott Harris loves. He loves hit tool over everything. So that was a bit surprising. But I think when you get an opportunity for a plus raw power catcher that has at least a decent shot at sticking at the position, you take that chance, even if his bat has backed up some this year. The last thing I wanted to discuss with that deal though is that with the Dodgers, like, do you feel like this kind of, I mean, they've always been the quote unquote favorites, but
Yeah.
it's been wide open with Flaherty now in that rotation and how banged up it's been and how they're getting healthier now. That's got to make them the comfortable favorites now, right?
The Phillies are really good. And with what they did to that bullpen and adding Austin Hayes too, like Austin Hayes creating a platoon in that outfield and Carlos Estevez coming over, I lean Phillies.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers, man, I just want to know like what the postseason rotation for the LA Dodgers will be. Like, are they going to shoehorn Kershaw into that because he's Clayton Kershaw? I have no idea. But like Glasnow's in it for sure. Flaherty has to be in it. How healthy is Yamamoto going to be? How healthy is Buehler going to be? How healthy is Kershaw going to be? Where's Bobby Miller? Like,
Yeah.
I think Miller's just that ship has sailed this year. I think
Yeah.
you can start from scratch again next year. Gavin Stone's been excellent. Is he in that postseason? I want to know how they fit the puzzle pieces together because they've been so unhealthy. And all of a sudden, does a guy who's performing well in Robleski go back to Oklahoma City and just hang out? Does a guy that has been shoving in his first two starts in River Ryan go
Oh,
back to
he ain't
Oklahoma
going
City?
anywhere, bro.
He's not
He's here to
going
stay.
anywhere. That's the thing, man. So it's like I'm just looking at this and it's like, okay, it was so thin, and then it got super trafficky all of a sudden. It's great to have Flaherty in this fold, but like, how do the rest of the puzzle pieces fit? I don't know yet.
I'm fascinated, but man, they needed just a healthy and available arm, and he helps in a big way. So I can't wait to see how they shake out that whole rotation, though. I'm with you.
I have no idea. All right, we did this in an hour 23. That's not
Not
terrible.
bad. Not
Not
bad.
terrible at all. Appreciate you staying up late with me. This was
Oh,
great to get this out, and this was a hell of a deadline. Again, phenomenal. I'm
love
super
the
excited.
pacing. Great
Yeah,
pacing of it.
it was, yeah, because it wasn't like all concentrated in an hour, and it's like, wait, who went where? We could digest everything until the very end, but that's what the last 10 minutes of the deadline are supposed to feel like. Like you're
Yep.
supposed to get those frenzy tweets, and it's like, okay, let me sort this out over the next hour, and
Yep.
that's what happened on that front. So we were hanging. Super excited to listen to you and Peter's live recording tomorrow. You guys are recording it tonight at 5 o'clock at the MGM Sportsbook in Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark. 5 games in 5 days tour rolls on. Massive thank you to Chinook Ceadery and Homage Apparel for their help on that one. Chinook, I stole a box of cinnamon toast and I'm giving them away in this AAA clubhouse. So I feel like, yeah, like the big league fans deserve all the Chinook seeds, but like these minor league players, they're spending a lot of time on buses. They just had some guys
They,
taken away from their
they,
clubhouse. Like they
they,
can have
they
some
deserve
cinnamon
some
toast.
cinnamon toast. That flavor goes crazy.
They deserve cinnamon toast. That is my favorite flavor, I think. And then I think parm and pepper is after that. So Chinook has been absolutely phenomenal to work with, and they were great for us during All Star and the live stream and all that. And yeah, every link you need is in the episode description. We will talk to you tomorrow.